Good day, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Thandokuhle Myoli, the Executive for Audit and Assurance here at SAICA. I'd like to welcome you all to another episode in our podcast series where we talk all things audit and assurance. Today I am joined by the head of Audit and Assurance at EY, Stephen Ntsoane. Stephen is a very familiar face within the SAICA space. He's the chair for Assurance Leaders Forum. But over and above that, he obviously, like I said, heads up audit and assurance at EY Africa, I believe. Stephen, welcome. We're very glad to have you here today, and thank you very much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to really just have a chat with our audience this morning.
Yeah, thank you, Tando, and I'd say hello to everyone, and really excited to be here on what I think is an important engagement and conversation regarding our profession.
Thank you very much. So to start off with, your day-to-day role outside of, obviously outside of the SAICA ALF, where we know you from.
Yeah.
So what do you do on a day-to-day basis? Perhaps your title, did I get it right? The head of assurance at EY Africa?
Yeah, Tando, you got it right. I look after the assurance practice across Africa. And in that assurance practice, our largest practice is audit. So I head up the audit practice within assurance at EY. I get the question all the time on what do I do on a daily basis. And I would say that a couple of things. So one is to ensure that we've got a well-functioning audit practice across the region. So one of the key indicators of what is a well-functioning audit practice is audit quality. So my number one KPI is audit quality across our practice in Africa. I also look after, call it the strategy execution within our practice in the region, making sure that our business is focused on the priorities that we set out for ourselves and we're executing those effectively. So on a day-to-day basis, I'm dealing with various matters. Could be people-related matters, audit quality-related matters, operational matters, but also spend a lot of time with our clients, which is also an important part of my role, is to understand our clients, understand our client expectations, to ensure that we sharpen our responses as a practice to those expectations. So in summary, that's the role.
All right, no, great summary. A lot of work. It's going to be a very interesting conversation. Just from that introduction, I'm able to kind of pull out a lot of pieces that we'll be talking through today.
Yeah.
But let's start with your CA journey, Stephen. So obviously you are a qualified chartered accountant. So where did the journey start for you, study-wise, growing up, and how do you ultimately end up, I guess, choosing the CA journey?
Yeah, interesting. So my journey started, I would say, when I was still in high school. And how I started to turn my mind towards the accounting profession was actually inspired by my father. He worked for many years for an accounting firm. At the time, it was one of the medium-sized accounting firms, which ended up being acquired by the large audit firms that we have. He took me to his office on a Saturday. They were in what today we call busy season. So everybody was working on a Saturday. It was my first experience of seeing where my dad worked, who he worked with, and what they did. I got to spend time with trainees. I got to spend time with managers, partners, getting to understand what they do. And I think I walked out of the building that day inspired to become an accountant myself. And I think from that point onwards, I then focused myself on becoming an accountant. My choice of subjects at school was the commerce line of subjects that had accounting, economics, business economics. And upon finishing school, I then pursued a national diploma in cost and management accounting the appeal for me was how, it went beyond just accounting, but also, touching on the management accounting side. As a youngster at the time, I thought that was a very interesting thing. I did a national diploma, and then upon finishing my diploma, I then started to ask myself, well, what is next now? And I realized that I actually wanted to become a chartered accountant, having learned a lot more about the profession, understood it a little bit more. I then ventured into a bridging course in the theory of accounting through UJ. At the time, it was still RAU, Rand Afrikaans Universiteit. And I ended up completing my honors at the UKZN. And that's how I'd say in earnest started my journey towards becoming a chartered accountant. And then, of course, did my training contract and then qualified as a CA, which was, I would say, a long journey that one, you dream about it, and then at the end you get to attain the qualification, and then the question becomes, what next? And for most people, the question is, do you remain in the industry or the profession, or do you venture out? And I think I was really attracted to the idea of growing myself in the firm and eventually becoming a partner. And I set my focus on that I want to grow myself in the firm, and I want to become a partner, and that's how my, I'd say, journey unfolded. It's a very summarized, I'd say, it's a career biography, if you like. If we have more time, I'll tell you more.
All right. All right. No. But articles, how was that? I mean, I do believe that articles is what you make of it, because you say you're exposed to so much as a trainee, right?
Yeah.
But for you, what was that journey like, in terms of how you embraced it?
Yeah.
Because I do believe that, like I said, I do find that a lot of trainees kind of, not say struggle, but I don't think they see the bigger picture just in terms of that training program and the exposure that they've got.
Yeah.
Just the lack of appreciation at times. It's a lot of hard hours, a lot of hard work, but I do believe that in terms of the journey itself, I mean, it exposes you to so much, which sometimes trainees do take for granted.
Yeah.
Just your own journey in terms of articles.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it provides great opportunities. So I think it's a privilege to be able to train, with a firm and under the guidance of people who've walked the same journey. That's one. Two is the exposure that you get to different companies, different organizations, and not many professions offer that. Often people work for a company and they learn about the company, what the company does, and some people grow within that company. And if they don't move around, don't get to see many other operations. So articles gives you exposure to many different sectors, companies of different sizes. And I think that's really what sharpens chartered accountants, and that's why we have a profession that's one of the most respected, is that we get really, really solid training. But that's what the profession gives you. But what is also important is your own attitude as a trainee. As you start your articles and within your journey as a trainee, I think you have to approach it with a learning mindset. You're there to learn. You're there to build relationships. And you're there to start to get an understanding of how business works. And upon completing your articles, you start a new journey. But at least it gives you the foundation to be able to pursue many different careers. In fact, we also have the privilege of being able to venture into many different careers as CAs. You have CAs in almost every single sector. And because it's a competence-driven qualification, it allows individuals the agility to be able to be effective in many different sectors. And I think that is that is one of the privileges of being a chartered accountant, and that's why the profession has been an attractive profession for many people. So I enjoyed my journey as a trainee. I've built long-lasting relationships. In fact, some of the people that I trained with are still my friends today. We've got a strong bond of having gone through the process of learning, of trying to become a chartered accountant, of engaging with clients, of solving complex problems together. And that creates long-lasting relationships and bonds. And even in future post articles, you tend to guide each other, advise each other, share experiences, because often you venture into different paths, but you're able to share your experiences. If you are still in professional practice and you have friends that are outside, you're able to compare what is it like, what are the experiences, and so on. So it does create, I would say, long-lasting relationships that become beneficial over a very long time. And I've certainly benefited from those relationships that were built during the days of my articles. Yeah. So I would say for me it was an amazing experience. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So now you come to the end of your articles, your training period. You did say that you wanted to become partner, right? Based on that, is that the journey that then you kind of undertook, or?
Yeah. I was one of those people who were clear that when I complete my articles, I do want to remain in audit, and I did. I remained in audit. The idea being that I want to grow myself and give myself the opportunity to grow to become a partner. Interestingly, as I was going through that journey, I felt that I needed to learn outside of audit. And I then decided to take up a role which was in more, call it outsourced accounting. And I felt I just needed to explore different opportunities within the profession. It was still within the profession, and learned a lot being outside of audit. I ended up doing a lot of audit remediation, audit support work, where I was using my knowledge and experience attained as an auditor to help clients navigate through audit and the audit process, help them prepare their own working paper files. So it was a great experience for me. At the time, or at EY, that business was sitting within our tax business. So that also gave me exposure to more of the tax side of things, working very closely with tax partners, working on some engagements or tax engagements myself. So broadened my experience. And I also ended up in consulting. So I became a partner in our tax business, and after a couple of years, I had an opportunity in our consulting practice to go and learn in that space, which I thought I should take up, and I think it was good for me at the time to expand my knowledge. And I spent a couple of years in our consulting practice, and then I returned back to audit. So I managed to have multiple careers within the same firm, where I've worked in different parts of our business, in our tax business, in our consulting business, in our assurance practice, leading up to 2018, when I was asked to take on the role of South Africa assurance leader. And 2 years later, or 3 years later, 2021, I took over the role of Africa assurance leader. So it's been a journey that's been unique to me. And that's what it's all about. Everybody gets a unique experience and a unique growth experience in the profession. And I've been privileged to have all of these different opportunities.
Yeah, it sounds like you've seen quite a lot of developments within the profession, I guess.
Yeah.
Throughout that time, because you've never been completely outside of audit. But just in terms of some of the evolution that you've seen within the profession, particularly if you look within audit specifically, what have been some of the changes that you've kind of seen coming through? I mean, at this point, we are seeing a lot of changes. Again, businesses becoming very complex. There's economic, in terms of the economic climate, there's a lot of turbulence that we kind of going through at this point in time. Technology is obviously kind of sweeping through with a lot of its changes as well. But just in terms of your own experience, how have you seen the profession kind of remain resilient throughout some of those changes that have taken place? And what are some of the lessons that we can take to kind of navigate through the changes that we're seeing at this point in time?
So one of the most interesting things for me was because I actually veered off the audit space for a couple of years and then got the opportunity to come back to practice as an auditor and as an audit partner, is what became clear to me was that the evolution of the profession in itself had been, relative to other professions, a bit slow. If I look at the gap that I took out of the profession and when I came back, a couple of things had changed, but in the bigger scheme of things, I would consider it at the time a bit slow. We are in a different time today, and I'll touch on that. What had changed were the tools that were being used to execute audits, more technological tools, the use of the cloud to store the working papers. When I started, we used to have physical working papers. So what had changed significantly was we no longer had physical files, but we had
green pens and red
no more
pens.
green pens. You had green marks on working papers, but everything was stored electronically and digitized. That was one of the big changes that had happened. And what had also started to take shape was the use of process automation and technological tools to do analytics. So that has been, I would say, one of the changes over time that has happened in terms of how the product is being delivered. There's also been changes outside of the profession that have impacted the profession. One of them is regulations. There's been, over the last 10, 15 years, been a lot of changes in regulations aimed at enhancing audit quality and independence of auditors. The biggest one, I think, was the introduction of the Sarbanes-Oxley Act in the US, which reshaped how auditors approach controls and reporting, etc. But you also had a couple of incidents that caused regulators around the world to take call it a deeper look at how the audit profession conducts itself. And that is a result of corporate failures and the question of the role of auditors in the corporate failure. And I think lots of work has been done around that in many different countries to try and understand the root causes, and particularly in as far as the role of auditors is concerned. This has led to introduction of rules like mandatory audit firm rotation to enhance independence of auditors. Many questions around whether there's a direct relationship between mandatory audit firm rotation and audit quality. There's many different schools of thought, and whether indeed that is what enhances audit quality over time. So from a regulatory perspective, we've seen regulators take steps to try and hold auditors more accountable. And you also have standard setters who also have had to look at the standards and look at whether these standards are still fit for purpose and that the standards are helping support a high quality audit as well. And over the years, there's been a number of changes or introduction of new standards. I think if you fast forward to today, we're looking at standards like ISQM 1, which totally resets the framework for managing for quality at a firm level and engagement level. We're seeing today new standards like ISO 600 that are trying to enhance risk assessment at a group level. and the involvement of group auditors in the execution of component audits. So those are just examples of evolution of the standards, and I think there's work happening around fraud and going concern that are also aimed at enhancing and strengthening the standards to support the auditors in executing their work. So there's been lots of, I would say, change that is happening outside of the profession to influence how the profession produces its work and product. And then there's change that has happened within the firms, which is technological advancement, more use of technology tools. The other change that we're certainly seeing, or we've seen over the last couple of years, is the increased use of other experts in delivering an audit, where you have a greater need for diverse skills to be able to deliver an audit. If you look at industries like the insurance industry, you have to have actuaries helping you to deliver that. If you're in the mining industry, you also need mining experts. There's engineers who also interesting, also form part of audit teams that help teams analyze risk and respond to risk. There's been increased use of forensic specialists to help the audit teams manage fraud risks, identify and respond to fraud risks. So there has been clearly an expansion of the type of skills that you need to deliver an audit. There's been moves in the technology side to try and modernize the audit product in terms of how it's being delivered. And of course, like I said, regulators as well have also looked at what changes they would like to put in place to try and strengthen the profession. But in aggregate, all of these changes, I would say, have been to strengthen the profession in the end. Yeah.
All right. If you look at the regulatory changes specifically, and just the impact, I guess, of those changes on the attractiveness of the profession. If I look at sectors, for example, like consulting, I don't say you have free reign, but there's not a lot of regulation there. And I guess as a result, you tend to see a lot of innovation that happens within those spaces.
Yeah.
What do you think the impact of the regulation is on the profession specifically?
Yeah, I think it's been profound. So as a regulated industry, you operate within certain bounds, practices, rules, and regulations. That does inform the speed of change if you want to introduce change or innovation, because you do have to comply with a set of rules and regulations. So to an extent, you would say that if you weren't subjected to the type of regulation, you'd probably innovate and move quicker with regards to, or try out new things a little bit faster, as you make an example of, say, the consulting side of things. But you have to understand why that regulation exists in the first place. So we operate in an industry that in the main is here to serve public interest. And the regulation that we have and the regulation that we see is actually designed to ensure that we are true to the purpose of an audit, is to actually protect public interest and enhance confidence in capital markets. So regulation will evolve, and often regulation has got to catch up with changes that are happening. It is safe to say that the regulation has not slowed or eased up in the profession. It's actually, you've seen more, I would say, regulation. But you have to understand the purpose of the regulation. So, and that's understandable. The question is, to what extent does regulation impact attractiveness? Particularly where you find regulation that also comes with, I would say, or has in it, call it punitive measures for those that act outside of either the codes or the actual regulations themselves that are set out. And there's lots of debate around whether that does have a direct impact on attractiveness. And I'd say that to an extent, yes. Some may feel uncomfortable that you operate in an environment where you could, say, as an audit partner, find yourself with fines. Not many people wake up every day to go to work and have the possibility of being fined. But I think if you understand the purpose of what we do, you can understand why there would be measures like that. I think what we've always advocated for as a profession, or at least members of the profession, is that you need to have also, call it fairness in the process, that you don't find any type of measures becoming so punitive that they start to, totally impact the attractiveness. And I think that's something that if you speak to auditors, accountants across the world, there's an understanding of why the regulations and all of the measures that comes with regulation exist. The question is always whether they are proportionate, fair, etc., in relation to whatever transgressions that may have taken place or take place. And I think if you get a good balance between the two, you should not see an impact on attractiveness of the profession coming out of regulation, particularly because one is an understanding of why we have a regulated industry. If you understand the why, I would say the concern moves from that there is regulation to how regulation is applied. And I think that's the space where we tend to want to engage how it's applied, and where you have measures, like I mentioned, that can impact an individual or a firm, that those are done in a fair, transparent manner and consistent way. Yeah.
Okay. Just on something that you spoke around, the use of experts, I'm sure that's something that we probably will see increase going forward. And looking at developments such as, sustainability assurance or assurance on other non-financial reporting.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's a trend, I guess, that we are going to see quite a lot of going forward. How do we then begin to position ourselves as a profession, especially if you look at for example, our curriculum that we've got that still focuses on the core disciplines of tax, of management accounting, financial accounting, auditing, etc.
Yeah.
How should we begin to, let's say, rethink the curriculum and the way, obviously the training program as well, at trainee level?
Yeah, I think it's an important question. So I do think that, so firstly, the product itself has been for many years focused on financial information and providing assurance on financial information. What is very clear is that stakeholders, investors, place a greater level of importance on non-financial information as well. And you speak about sustainability. So, and we've seen in other markets, like in the European market with the CSRD, the introduction of sustainability standards, that clearly this is going to be a space where over time, and in addition to that, there's also a standard or an assurance standard in ISO 5000.
Yeah.
So what is very clear is that this is a space that is non-financial information, or at least has a large component of non-financial information that over time will require assurance, as I believe it's going to be part of normal audit and assurance. So that's one example. And then you have spaces like cybersecurity, which is a huge risk that's facing many organizations, where clearly it's a risk that is a business risk for many organizations. And stakeholders will want to get some comfort around the frameworks, the defense mechanisms that are being applied by companies, and how could the assurance arm provide any level of assurance around that. The third thing is also clients, and in this case includes stakeholders and investors, are looking for more insights out of an audit. Often the focus is on that audit report to see whether it indicates anything, whether you've got key audit matters or anything. But I think the product in itself over time would need to accommodate all of those needs, diverse needs of different stakeholders. So with the expanding need from stakeholders, it means we also need to look at how do we then develop the capacity, the capabilities to be able to do that. And that then speaks to what I would term expanded assurance, where assurance expands beyond financial information and touches on areas like ESG, and that is going to require us to learn differently, and will start to inform the curriculum of people that are pursuing studies to become an accountant. So certainly that will definitely have an impact on how the curriculum is set, and the conversation has got to happen with the institutions of learning as to how do we then ensure that we shape the learning at that level to be able to be relevant for the type of skills that are required. I spoke about cybersecurity, and perhaps I'll expand and say technology more broadly is becoming an important area of competence for auditors and the audit profession. That also will inform the learning curriculum inside the firms, and also for students that are coming through with degrees wanting to become accountants. So yes, we will need much more diverse skills. It's not going to, slow down. We're actually going to need a lot more diverse skills. And yes, you're correct. The learning institutions that produce the workforce would also need to adapt to that, so that we are remaining relevant, and also are focused on developing the right skills to be able to meet the expectations of a broad range of stakeholders.
Mm-hmm. It reminds me of, as you talk of all the specialisms, if I can put it like that, the different areas. I think the Bryden report that came out was around 2020. We spoke around, almost like different types of auditors that, in that case, the UK market might need, where we're not just producing one RA, but we're looking at, registered auditors that will focus on different areas. Do you think that's perhaps a path looking forward? You've touched on cybersecurity, you've touched on ESG. Are those considerations that you should perhaps be looking at?
Yeah, absolutely. So the idea that there'll be diverse skills, and with diverse skills, what you will find is that even the paths to qualification would also need to evolve. So the idea that we would retain the same path to qualification, I would say, into the future is probably no longer a sound way of looking at it. There is clearly a need for us to be able to build the right level of specialism. Whilst you may be able to build basic skills in these areas by expanding your curriculum, you will also need to build deep skills in each of these areas. So you'll need somebody who is a deep specialist in ESG. And even within ESG, you need deep specialism within that. Technology, you will need people who have got deep technology skills to be part of the audit teams. So to have all of that under one umbrella may not be practical. And you might therefore see different, swim lanes with different specializations coming through. And we already have that currently. If I look at the typical skills of people that are executing on an audit, you have mining engineers, you've got sustainability. Take a mining client, mining engineer, sustainability specialist, pure technical accounting specialist, audit specialist, technology risk specialist. So you kind of already are seeing this dive. And all of these people, if you look at their underlying qualifications, they're not the same. They've all come through a different stream. So I think it's something that we can expect to continue.
All right. And then technology, there's a lot of talk around AI. Do you think that's going to change, because given its potential abilities, do you think that's going to change the nature of the product going forward? Or does it at least have the potential to change? I mean, we've heard terms such as continuous audits, real-time audits, etc.
Yeah. So Thando, I'd say the question today is not if,
it's when.
It's how.
How? Okay.
How is it going to change the way we deliver our services to our client, and also how does that impact audit quality? Remember, everything is all of the things we speak about, the specialist and diverse teams, attractiveness. Ultimately, at the end of the day, we're talking about the ability to produce a high quality product. I do think AI will play a significant role going forward. It is not going to just touch, or is not just touching our own profession, many professions. So that there will be use of artificial intelligence in performing audits, I think it's a foregone conclusion, a resounding yes. Artificial intelligence will play a role in how audits are executed. The question is the speed of change and how it gets utilized. And on the how question, I think one of the critical questions is responsible use of artificial intelligence in a manner that respects client confidentiality and also does not compromise confidential and sensitive client information. So that's one of the things. So governance around the use is important. And as time goes on, use cases will start to emerge across the world on how artificial intelligence gets used to execute on audits. There's a reasonable expectation from the stakeholders, the market, that the audit profession ought to be looking towards utilizing artificial intelligence because we use and process so much data. As an example, we need client data to be able to analyze, perform analytics and all other forms of procedures to be able to arrive at a conclusion. Certainly, artificial intelligence has got a role to play in there. And like I said, the use and how it's used becomes very critical. But its ability to be an important part of the system, for me, I think it's no longer a question. We are very close to seeing it become very normal to use artificial intelligence. However, you also have to look at how do you also strengthen the quality with artificial intelligence. It's no use having information sourced through AI being utilized by auditors without that information being checked for quality, reliability, etc. So we are going to need to have systems that allow us to be able to make sure that the product that gets produced using artificial intelligence is still a high quality product, but it will impact the product and how the product is delivered without a doubt. And of course, it will also impact the type of learning that happens within the audit firms, the type of learning that happens within the schooling system, because what used to be rare knowledge a couple of years ago is no longer rare knowledge. Now you need humans that can engage and be able to work with artificial intelligence to be more efficient and produce higher quality products. And I would say that will also inform how we now look at how to teach as well, given that I also believe it's just a matter of time before anybody who writes an exam is allowed to have that assistance. Now, if you have that assistance, the question becomes, how do you then examine? If it started with, in my generation, we were allowed to use our textbooks to take into the exam room to go write the exam. Now, you fast forward to today, those textbooks could be sitting in an AI tool, and you're allowed to interact with that tool to answer the exam question. And I think the question is going to be, how do we then teach and how do we then test for knowledge in that environment? So I think certainly will impact many parts of the ecosystem.
At the firms, what have you done to, I guess, to kind of prepare for the, and I'm sure you already quite deep in it, but I'm just looking at the trainees coming in. Has it impacted the number of trainees that your intake in terms of the trainees, and the roles, I guess, that the trainees play? Is it?
Yeah, I would say that I don't think it's matured to that level. Now I'm not. Okay. Now I'm just talking across the board. I don't think it's matured yet to a level where it's starting to impact intake currently, but certainly there's a lot of learning that is happening in the firms. Lots of investment that is happening in the tools. So yes, this will shape the future. The big buzzword today is agentic AI, where you've got agents that could become part of your team that are artificial intelligence. Naturally, that's going to impact how you organize teams once that matures to the right level. So that there will be changes, yes. The question is the speed of change? And I can say certainly as of now or today, I don't think we've seen the level of maturity of use of artificial intelligence in the audit profession such that you could say there's been a massive grand scale change in the number of people that are being absorbed into the profession today. We're not there yet, but we're going to get there. It's just a matter of time where I would say we will have reconfigured talent models because of artificial intelligence. And if you take an abundance mindset, that should not necessarily mean that you employ less people. You may do different things with the advent of artificial intelligence and get empowered to do things that you probably cannot do today. So it will be interesting how that starts to impact the talent models, the recruitment models going forward, and ultimately the delivery models of teams that are facing clients. But it's something that we can start to embrace as something that's real for us.
Yeah. So it sounds like a lot of repurposing of the roles, right? From everyone across the entire ecosystem. If you look at the examiners, the universities, they're going to need to rethink their models.
Yeah.
Firms, SAICA, likes of professional bodies, regulators, etc. So
yeah, it will.
Yeah.
Everybody's trying to figure it out right now. Nobody's got the blueprint. We all are expressing opinions about it based on our knowledge. What is certain, like I said, is that there will be change. As to how and the speed is something that I think everybody's trying to figure out today. And also, I would say some also don't want to necessarily be quick first adopters of any change that's introduced by artificial intelligence. Some want to watch and see how it impacts others, and then start to reshape their own strategies around that. So you've got almost the pioneers, the leading, I would say, early adopters, and then some are just going to adopt slowly, learning from others who want to be early adopters. So it's going to be an interesting journey, especially for our profession, because our clients as well as the profession are also looking at how to adapt their own processes and operations by leveraging artificial intelligence. And it's without a doubt going to impact how we then interact with our clients if they've got artificial intelligence as part of their own ecosystem. I make the example that where you've got algorithms that are producing outcomes, we will also need to learn how to audit algorithms. And that's part of the change that we will see, and that will require a different type of skill to be able to do that, which we currently, not employing at scale. You've got pockets of people that have possess, very, very strong technology skills in general, other than College of Technology and IT general control skills. But pure tech, you kind of have got lots of small pockets, but that's going to expand over time. Yeah.
But at least it seems like the profession will need to gear itself, I guess, gear itself up for the tech, when it comes to the tech skills, which is, I guess, exciting for the new generation of candidates coming up, because it means they're not getting left behind as other professions kind of evolve and adopt those skills.
Yeah,
the accountancy profession will be in the thick of things.
Yeah,
when it comes to those changes as well.
Absolutely. So it speaks to the topic of attractiveness as well. Part of the profession becoming or remaining, I shouldn't say becoming, it already is attractive, remaining attractive, is how the profession evolves on things like technology, artificial intelligence, because that will inform the employee experience. So the person who's employed by the profession, the experience of the profession will be informed and impacted by how the profession uses technology, how the culture within organizations also evolves over time. So it certainly has got something, or rather a significant role to play in how in the long run the profession remains attractive. I can tell you, if the profession does not evolve as well on call it the technological side, it will cease to be attractive. So it's something that is an imperative, because the world is moving that direction, and we certainly need to be able to connect with that world as a profession. Yeah.
And I guess also from an ESG point of view, the social relevance aspects, again, the profession is right in the middle of those developments that are taking place there.
Correct.
So another angle.
Yeah.
To it, yeah.
Many angles. Yeah. Yeah.
No, thanks, Stephen. Just looking at, I guess, another big change that you mentioned, ISQM. Yeah. Obviously, that's been one of the biggest developments in terms of standard setting that has taken place. You mentioned all the other ones. I think there's still a lot of technology-related changes that the IWSP is currently busy with. But in terms of ISQM, I mean, that's one of the fundamental standards that we've got in place. And then I know a lot of firms went out and kind of say, not remodeled, but had a serious think about their quality processes. What has been the impact just in the profession generally of ISQM, and the intended benefits? Have those actually been realized by the firms? In terms of the the enhanced focus on quality as a measure throughout the firms.
Yeah. So Thando, let me start by saying, I think ISQM has introduced a different approach towards managing audit quality at a firm level. That is not to suggest that ISQC1 was not effective at that, because ISQC1 was around for many years. What ISQM1 does is start to introduce a risk lens towards managing quality. It requires you to do risk assessments to look at where could you have gaps gives you a framework as to how to look at your quality management system. And using that framework, you then analyze where the risks could emerge, and then define those risks, document those risks, and then develop a response to those risks. So clearly, it's not a new concept to how to manage risk, but I think helps everyone have a consistent approach towards managing it at a firm level that is risk-based. And then you have to design the controls, as I mentioned, as a response to those risks. And you also have to test those controls to look at whether those controls are effective. So I do think that it's taken quality management to the next level. And I think we will start to see the benefits in the long run. You don't see the benefits overnight. But I can tell you, some of the immediate benefits we saw was just a sharpened focus, a sharper focus by those that are in the quality community and all other stakeholders that aren't necessarily directly affected or involved in the execution of audit, but can impact quality through their roles. So I think it's taken the profession to a different level of maturity in terms of managing quality at a firm level. So my own experience of it has been positive, and I'm sure others will also, speak positively about how it's helped organize the firm around quality. Now, what is the impact? How do you measure the impact? What would you say at the end of the day is, call it, positive outcomes? I think you should start to see it in your inspection outcomes. And I'm talking inspections done at a firm level by the firms themselves, because firms have got their own inspection programs. And you also start to see it in what firms would call external inspections, which are the regulatory inspections. And I think those, because inspections also provide us with really, really good insights on the effectiveness of our quality management system. And I think over time, as we are able to compare trends post-implementation, we will start to see the true impact of ISQM. So I think it has been positive. Of course, it required a lot of work in terms of the systems that we have, how we organize our people in the firms. But I would certainly think it has taken us to the next level. So I think in general, that's been positive.
All right.
Yeah.
In terms of the annual evaluation, monitoring and evaluation, were there any, just in your experience, just any, I'll say surprises, but just any outcomes from that process?
Yeah.
From your own side.
Yeah, it's learning. So the evaluation that is, of course, the regulators are also going to start to do, call it, much more robust inspections of ISQM as they also mature around their own processes. But certainly learnings out of it. That stand back is important to look at whether it is in effect functioning. And some organizations have got certification programs where somebody's got to certify that indeed the system that is, or evaluate the system to ensure that it's actually functioning as intended. So it does provide a good stand back for those that are in leadership in firms to say, do we really have a system of quality management that is functioning, and helps identify where the gaps are and helps to direct the action plans towards the right areas as well. So I think it's been positive across the board.
All right.
Yeah.
Just a last one from me, Stephen. Around, I know you're an active member of the profession, so outside of your own firm, you do a lot for, not just for SAICA. I know we had SAPTI at some point, you were very active there. But just the importance, I guess, of being active within the profession on your side? What have been some of the benefits? And do you encourage, I guess, other members to be active within their professional body spaces, etc.?
Yeah. So firstly, it's our profession at the end of the day, and I think that yes, you're not going to have everybody participating, but also where you have an opportunity can play a role, contribute. I would challenge everybody to look for those opportunities. We do shape the future of this profession together through engagement, through dialogue. So I think it's a space that does require members of the profession to contribute. And yes, I know there's many role players that qualified chartered accountants who are still very connected to what is happening in the profession, but also there's many others who are, call it, passive in the profession. But I would say for me it's been very fulfilling to use my knowledge, my learnings to help shape a profession that I would like to see as well. And I think that's important. There's also many young people who are looking to see whether this is a profession that they may want to be part of in the future when they finish school. It's important that we tell stories about our profession, that we engage people who want to understand more about it. And I think SAICA provides many platforms for that to happen. So for me, it's been an absolute pleasure to play my role. Those that are currently in the profession today, I think have a responsibility to leave it better than we found it. And that takes really intentional contribution to that ideal of leaving this profession in a much better position than we found it, out of those that built up this profession. So playing a role, participating in forums of the profession, for me, is something that I've found to be appealing and quite important to do. So yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure for me. Yeah.
All right. And thank you very much for all the input. It's been, sometimes it's tough input, but it's necessary input on our side that we need to get. I think it does really drive the profession forward. We saw SAICA again kind of regaining the #1 spot not so long ago.
Yeah.
In terms of trust, and that's through the input that we get from the likes of you and other very active members. So really appreciated. Any closing remarks, I guess, or before you get to the closing remarks, just in terms of your own path going forward, your plans, 5-year plan, as a CASA?
I've got so much to achieve in the short term that I don't know if I can afford to think in 5-year cycles. But for me, it's really about continuing to grow. This profession continues to provide growth opportunities, learning opportunities. That doesn't stop. So even, where I am currently personally in my career, I look for learning opportunities to try and make myself better, to be more effective, contribute to my own firm and my profession. And that's been my focus. How do I better contribute? And how do I empower myself through learning to be able to do that, to continue to do that? So that is certainly something that I would say has kept me interested. You also work with a lot of young minds, young people that are coming into the profession that bring such a different perspective to how we see the world. So I think that's also kept me interested to be able to engage with so many young people that bring their own perspectives into the profession. But yeah, for me, it's been an ongoing journey of growth, of learning, and it's something that I certainly enjoy, and that's why I'm still in the profession. Yeah.
All right. Closing remarks for university trainee or university student that's out there. Perhaps finding it tough to navigate the books, etc. Or it could be a trainee, that's still also navigating the trainee contract route.
Yeah. So I would say this: it's not easy to qualify to become a chartered accountant. Is a process that requires you to invest a lot of your time, dedication, and have a good support system to be able to get through the rigor of becoming a CA. It's a great profession to be part of. You learn a lot by being a chartered accountant. In the process of becoming a chartered accountant, you learn a lot. You learn even more once you've qualified and select whichever sector of business that you want to be part of going forward. So those that are still studying today, hang in there. I would say this is about resilience. This is about how determined you are. It will test your determination. But it's very rewarding in the long run. Those that are already in the system, I always remind our trainees that you've already achieved so much. If you think about what you've had to overcome to get to becoming a first-year trainee accountant, you've already achieved so much, and you've already demonstrated a couple of things. You've already demonstrated that you can be dedicated, committed, that you're competent. That's why you're here. And it's really about building on that to realize the next version of yourself that will take you into the future. So it is a learning experience. Approach it with a positive attitude. Humble yourself. Nobody owes you anything. You are here to contribute and learn. And in the long run, you'll become the beneficiary of how you embraced the opportunity. So you've not made the wrong decision by choosing this profession. It is an exciting profession. It is quite evolutionary. It keeps on evolving. We can speak about the pace of evolution, but it keeps on changing, and it will continue to change and remain relevant in the future. It's an important part of the functioning of capital markets. That's what makes it such an important profession. And it will continue to provide opportunities going into the future. Those opportunities may change, may not look like the opportunities we had 10 years ago, but it will continue to provide great opportunities for growth. And for that reason, it remains a profession that I'm really, really proud to be part of. Even more proud to be part of the South African profession that's been rated #1 in the world. You can't take that for granted. It speaks to the quality that we have in the system. And for that reason, I'm proud, and I think that it's a profession that will continue to remain relevant and rewarding to an individual.
All right. Thank you very much, Stephen. I think that was a very good interview. Great insights. And thank you very much for taking the time out. Just sharing a portion of your day with us today.
Yeah. No, thank you. It's been exciting. It's been a great conversation, and I love talking about our profession. So thank you for having me.
All right. Thank you. Till next time, ladies and gents. Cheers.